Welcome back to another daily drop here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and you can see what the topic is: ACC, SEC, Big Ten, North Carolina. For the first time since 1976, North Carolina has a win in the same season over a team from the SEC and a team from the Big Ten. The Tar Heels opened up the year in Charlotte with a 31-17 win over South Carolina. And this past weekend, they took care of Minnesota at home, 31-13. The last time Carolina beat a team from each of those two conferences in the same season was 1976, 47 years ago. In week 2, they won at Florida, 24-21. A week later, they took care of Northwestern at home, 12-0. But there is a catch. The catch is they don't often play a team from the Big Ten and a team from the SEC in the same season. In fact, it's only happened 5 times since 1976, with this year being the 5th time. So this is definitely something to push. And Mac Brown is so good at elevating little nuggets of information that stick with people, and I think make them look a little bit better, make their success stand out a little bit more. It makes it pop, if you will. So in his press conference Monday, he just kind of threw it out there. First time since 1976. And people are like, whoa, we all tweeted it. And it generated all kind of action on Twitter, lots of activity, lots of comments, some snide remarks as always. That's good. That's what social media is for sometimes. But so I thought I would look, okay, I don't recall them playing a lot of Big Ten teams. They have played their share of SEC teams over time. In the 80s, they had a home and home with Auburn. They had a home and home with South Carolina was independent back then. They had home and home with LSU. They have had a couple of home and homes with Big Ten. They had Indiana in the 90s, 97 and 99. Not a lot of others. They did have a home game against Illinois in the 80s, but they did not play them on the road. They've done some Big 12, Big 8, Big 12, depending on what the period in time. Big 8 in the 80s, Big 12 now. But not many years where they've played an SEC and Big Ten in the same year. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll through it, because I think this is fascinating stuff. I love history, and I love sports history. And I think anytime you can tuck in a little nook and cranny of knowledge about neat stuff like this, I think it's kind of fun and it can be helpful. So since this is a topic this week, because Mac said something in his presser and it kind of blew up a little bit on social media, here are the games. 1976, like I said, they went down to Gainesville. They won 24-21. Week later, they beat Northwestern 12-0. The following year, they opened the season with a 10-7 loss at Kentucky. In week 3, they won 41-7 in the return game at Northwestern. 10 more years. It took 10 more years before they played a team for both leagues in the same year. In that season, they clobbered Illinois and Chapel Hill 34-14, and they lost 20-10 at Auburn. So they split in 77, and they split the 2 games in 87. The year after, in 2015, so we're talking another 28 years. Pretty wild, 28 years. They opened with a loss to South Carolina, 17-13 in Charlotte. A lot of people remember that game. By the way, the Heels then won 11 straight. The only time in school history they've won 11 straight games in the same season. And then in week 3 that year, again, Illinois, they annihilated the Illini 48-14 in Chapel Hill on a rainy day. The following year, 2016, the Tar Heels open up against Georgia in the old Georgia Dome before they imploded it. And the Heels led in the third quarter, but lost 33-24 in Kirby Smart's first game as Georgia's coach. And a week later, the Heels hit the road, went up to Illinois, and Mitch Trubisky and company pounded the Illini again, 48-23. By the way, the Illini come up 3 times in these games, 34-14, 48-14, 48-23. I would imagine Illinois, no matter what era, doesn't want to play North Carolina anymore in football. And then you have this year's 2 games. So the Heels went 2-0 in these games in 76. And then in 77, 87, 15, and 16, they split. And this year they go 2-0. I think it's interesting. I'd like to see more of these games. I think every power conference, especially now with the CFP being 12 teams starting next year, and the need to get as much intel on these clubs and these leagues that they play in as possible, I think every team should have to play 2 non-conference games against power conferences. You got to play a Big 12. You got to play an SEC. You got to play a Big 10. And whoever knows what happens, I guess the Pac-12 is not going to exist anymore, but maybe the Mountain West will be deemed a semi-power conference. Go on the road. Go play at Wyoming. Go play at Colorado State. But you should have to play 2 non-conference games against power conference teams so we know as much as we can about these leagues and the teams that are winning or contending for titles in those leagues so we get a good feel. You got a good feel in North Carolina already. When you beat South Carolina the way they did, which was more convincingly than what Georgia did at home this past weekend, and then you beat Minnesota by 18 points. We'll see what they do in the Big Ten, but there's a little bit of a barometer. Remember a few weeks ago, I did one of these drops and I said, these games are important because if Carolina wins and those teams go on to do well in their leagues that are highly respected, it's going to help Carolina's narrative as the season builds. I think everybody needs to have some kind of narrative. Playing patsies all the time ain't going to cut it. I know coaches need wins, all that crap, but we need to know who these teams are. So let's see North Carolina play SEC, Big 10, and throw in a Big 12, a combination 2 every year moving forward. We won't have to do one of these podcasts in 47 years saying it's the first time since 2023 that North Carolina beat an SEC and Big 10 team in the same year. Play more of these games. Anyway, if you like this video, go ahead and click like. If you think North Carolina should play an SEC, Big 10/Big 12 every year, to a combination of 2, go ahead and click like. Let me know what you think, either on Twitter, on our message board, here on Facebook. Make sure that you subscribe to our channel, that you click the notification bell so you get an update every time we post a video. And you guys that have been following us for a while, you know it's often. We are prolific posting stuff. And don't forget, for $8.33 a month, you can be an insider too, going over to our site. There is a ton of stuff you never see on this channel on YouTube. There's a ton of stuff that's not free content that you only access if you're a subscriber. And it's the cost of a cheap meal at a drive-thru now. So it's just $8.33, guys. Come over and become a member of our growing and fun, thoughtful community. I'm AJ. I'll see you tomorrow.